Hello YouTube, welcome to my channel. If you haven't noticed by some of my more recent videos, I've been really working hard on my pop and trying to get higher on my bike. I've always been pretty good at jumping, pretty comfortable with it, everything like that, but over the last year or so, I've really watched a lot of these riders just boost like big air off of jumps, and I really, I may not get to like their level, but I definitely want to get higher than I get today. So if this is also you, you might want to follow me through this journey of the little minute details that I'm learning and evolving as I go through this process of how to get higher off of jumps. I'm really enjoying this, and I'm really stoked with my progress so far, and I have a little ways to go yet, but I'll talk a little bit about what I've learned so far, and today I'll actually compare to a student of mine, and I can compare the contrast between why you may not get so much air versus how you get more air. So let's do this. Okay, we're gonna start off by analyzing this video I did the other day. This is the highest height that I got using the MTB hopper ramp in its lowest configuration but highest setting in that configuration. Um, we'll see kind of the progress I've made here on my pop. I'm pretty stoked with how far I've gotten with this, and putting this bar up and using the hopper ramp kind of forced me to really get the pop action in motion here. So let's analyze this. First we'll just back it up and we'll watch the full video. Cool, so let's talk about it. I'm gonna go back to here. Unfortunately this tree is in the way, but you can still see what's going on. So as I'm coming up, see my helmet there, you'll see me start to dip down. That means I'm crouching, so I'm getting in the compressed mode. You can even see my legs a little bit here. I'm getting low on the bike and compressing, and then as I come up here, I'm in that compressed position, and you'll see that I start to already spring up a little bit. Boom, right there. I'm already starting to spring my body up. So that's my arms and legs at this point as I come up the transition. So right in here is what a lot of people call like the pump, or the little compression before you do the jump. Right here. And then as I come up, you can see my arms are starting to extend, and so are my legs. And right here you can see my front wheel is starting to come up. You can also tell by my facial expression that I'm trying really hard right here, which is kind of funny. So the next frame, you're gonna see my front wheel come off, and I'm already like pulling with my arms. It's probably like a tiny bit early, but I mean, when you're talking about the length of ramps, it's going to be really hard to have it perfect every time where you're always at the absolute edge of the ramp or lip of the jump. But this is pretty close. And so from here, this is the part where I talk about this row anti-row, and I started using that terminology after watching Joy of Bikes and some of the stuff Lee Likes Bikes talks about, and he talks about this row anti-row. So if you think of a rowing machine, when you're on a rowing machine, when you want to do the row, you're pulling with your arms and you're pushing with your legs. So you're pushing, and generally on a row machine the seat slides on rails, right? So you're sitting on the seat, you're pushing with your legs, you're pulling with your arms, and the seat slides back. So that's the row, that exact same motion. I mean, it's pretty much identical on a bike. You're pushing with your legs and you're pulling with your arms, and the idea is you're not pulling the handlebars up per se, like perpendicular to the ground. You're pulling them back towards your chest. See the alignment of my arms, my shoulders, and the handlebars. If you hear a lot of people talk about bike setup and everything, here's kind of a good photo of where that all matters. If you had your bars like way forward, it would really make things awkward. If they were way backwards, it'd be really awkward. So having your bars in the right position is pretty important in all of this, and having their proper size bike and all that. But we're not going to get into those details, but that is, kind of looking at this alignment. It's relatively from the axle all the way through to my shoulders is a pretty straight line. So that's where I'm pulling. I'm pulling the handlebars back towards my chest. So I'm in the process of doing the row portion, and so I'm pulling and pushing with my legs. Boom. And you can see my knees, they straighten out my legs. I'm still pushing with my legs, I'm pulling with my arms. Really important. Like, what I used to have a tendency to do at this point is I'd already be pushing forward to aim my wheel for the landing, whatever the landing may be. And then my back wheel would start coming up the ramp, leave the ramp early. And I will show you an example of that from one of my students last year, of why that happens or how that works in a moment here. But let's stick with this for the moment. Pushing my legs down, pulling with my arms, still have that alignment. I'm pulling. And also another thing to notice is if you look at the direction the ramp would naturally send my front wheel, if you were just to roll like a ball off of this or whatever, the ball would go up, it would probably pop a little bit, and then it would start to fall and it would land on the ground depending on the speed that you rolled it. But at the speed that I'm riding my bike, it would probably go maybe about this high. So that's how you can tell that I'm really pulling, is the front wheel is actually quite a bit higher than where the ramp would naturally send it. So I'm pulling the front wheel, still pulling at this point, right? And you can see how straight my legs are. My body has sprung up. So we're just going to back this up, and then I'll come back to this point. You can see how my body, from this point to this point, I'm a big giant springing into the air. Boom. Pushing my legs down, pulling my arms forward, and boom, I'm right here. So the next couple of frames is pretty crucial. So in this very moment, you're going to see everything kind of start to take place as far as the trajectory that I'm going to start going. So we'll go to the next frame. You'll see my back wheel is just getting light, and then the next frame, it comes off the ramp. One of the things to note is, if you remember when I talked about my front wheel coming off the ramp just a tad early, my back wheel is coming off the ramp at the exact same place that my front wheel took off the ramp. That's crucial. That's really what matters, is that your wheels are taking off in the same point of the transition. Yes, it would be nice to ride it out 100%, but that's really difficult to do. We're talking little microseconds here of timing, right? But the idea is where your front wheel takes off is also where your back wheel should take off, right? So now this next frame, I'm still kind of going up, I'm still pulling. You can see my elbows kind of do a little bit more bend there, so I'm still pulling the front end up at this point, trying to get over that bar. And here we're kind of at that peak of where the front end is going to go. Now here's where a huge difference is, and so this is pretty much the end of the row. And now we're going to start the anti-row. So think of the anti-row. Let's go back to the rowing machine example, where you're pulling on the bars, you're pushing with your legs. You pull the row machine, you push with your legs, the seat slides back, your arms come to your chest, you're at the peak of your row. Well, now what do? All right. Well, you relax your legs. You're not pulling up with your legs. You're relaxing your legs. And you're allowing, and this key word here is allow. You're allowing the seat to start coming forward, and you start to push forward on the row machine, on your handlebars, and you're kind of sucking your knees up to your chest as you push forward, and the seat comes forward. So that's, the row machine example. You do the exact same thing on a bicycle. I'm going to start to push the handlebars forward, and I'm going to allow the back wheel to come up. I'm going to start compressing my knees to allow the back wheel to come up. One thing I'm going to stress here is you'll go out there and see people talk about, whether it's on YouTube or just anywhere else, pointing your toes and pulling up your back wheel with your pedals, even with platforms. It's like, no, 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 that's not the technique that you want to be doing. I am not pointing my toes and pulling up on the pedals. If I was, this foot would be coming right off the pedals, right? I am allowing the back wheel to come up. So watch what happens here. I'm going to push my arms forward, and by that motion of pushing my arms forward, that's what's going to make the back end of the bike pop up. For anybody that knows skateboarding, if you know what an ollie is, an ollie is basically what we call a bunny hop in BMX. They're not lifting the board with their feet. What they're doing is they're popping the nose of the board up, pushing their forward foot on the board to the front, to the nose of the board, and they're jumping and bending their back foot. They're bending their back knee on their back foot and allowing the back end of the board to pop up. And that forward push with the front foot is what's making the back of the board pop up. Same thing going on here. I'm pushing forward with my arms, and that's putting all these forces going forward, and it's making the back end of the bike pop up. So no, you're not lifting anything with your feet. It's all going on right here. And that push forward is actually going to cause the bike to literally rotate in the air, like start to pivot, where the back wheel comes up and the front wheel levels off. Watch what happens. Boom, I started popping forward. Now watch the back wheel. The back wheel is starting to come up, and notice the bike it's not quite yet, but very quickly here you'll notice the bike is starting to level off. So I'm still pulling. You can see how bent my elbows are. I'm pulling those handlebars, bending my knees, and I'm pushing forward. And there it is. See how the bike rotates right here. Rotates right from here. The bike is, about a 45-degree angle to leveling off. And that's happening because of me pushing forward with my arms right here. Pushing forward. You see that motion with my arms, how I'm pushing forward? So I'm pulling, now I'm pushing, and then the bike levels off. Really important to understand that my feet are completely level on the pedals. There's nowhere in here that I'm pulling up the back end of the bike with my feet. So anybody that tells you that that's what you're supposed to do, stop listening to them. They don't know what they're talking about. Leveling off, coming over the bar, and now I'm coming down the backside. So this is super crucial. It's like the key to the whole thing. So there's kind of the row part, pull front end, and then the anti-row. Pushing the bars forward, allowing the back end to come up. Now I'm coming down to land, and somewhere in here is where I have to make a decision. Okay, I'm gonna do a flat landing, so I want to land rear wheel first. If I had a big downside here, I would change what my actions are at this point in the game right here. So because I'm gonna land rear wheel first, you'll see that I keep the front end of the bike up, so I don't just relax my arms. I'm still holding the front end of the bike up, and you'll notice me straighten my legs pretty quickly here. Boom, I'm pushing down the back wheel and pushing it into the ground and getting me to land rear wheel first. Boom, so it's right through there. That push the back end down while holding the front end up. You'll notice a lot of people, when they're learning to jump, obviously they're not going to go this high when they're learning to jump, but they'll nose dive and land front wheel first. And so it's this action of continuing to pull on the bars and pushing the back wheel down to get you to land rear wheel first. and then come down. And then here's the compression. This is another important thing people need to learn and think about is when you come down, a lot of people, I just saw it actually today, somebody saying, well, how much suspension do I need for this kind of jump or landing or whatever, and it was on a mountain bike forum, and the answer to that is zero. Suspension is there to make things feel better, but it doesn't make you more capable. So just let that be known. Riding a full suspension mountain bike is so your ride is more comfortable, but you can do anything and everything that you can on a mountain bike on a fully rigid bike than you can on a full suspension bike, probably with an exception of going to that kind of extreme huge gap limit or something like that where you actually need the suspension. But for 99% of mountain biking, you don't need suspension. It's there to make your ride comfortable, to give your body a little bit of a break, right? But here you can see I compress, boom, and my body is my suspension right here. Compressing the landing, coming down, and then riding out. So let's run it all the way through, and then we'll show you that. Sweet. So I want to bring this back to talking about the student that I was teaching and why he's not boosting a lot of air, and why you may be taking off too early or not getting the amount of air you think you should get. And let's look at that. Let's move him forward here. We'll get him all the way up to the jump. Okay, so from here on out, we'll just watch him through and then I'll talk about it. All right, so huge difference from how I went off the ramp. I am gonna say that this is excellent, and especially considering that this is his first time learning how to jump. Like this isn't something he's been doing for years like me. He's new to this. I coached him, and he was super stoked on this. So awesome job. He did everything I told him to do here. So watch, he comes up. He compresses, perfect form right there, exactly what you want to do. And then he comes up onto the ramp. He's starting to spring up. Look at his body, perfect. Boom, spring, just like I did in my video. He's springing up, right? And coming up here is going to be where the big difference is, and where a lot of us probably struggle, and it's kind of that next level. So you get here, he's doing great, form is great, and the difference is right here. You see him kind of pull up the front wheel a little bit, and then boom, this next frame, you can already see his back wheel coming off the ramp. The reason that's happening is look at his hands. From this from this frame to this frame, notice how much he pushes forward. So he's basically starting the anti-row way back here. So he actually did the row anti-row. He's doing the row right about here, but he doesn't do much row at all. He just does a little bit, and then he starts the anti-row early, causing his back wheel to come up. Again, he's not lifting this bike with his feet. That's a little pointed, but he's not like pointing his toes and pulling up on his pedals, and he's certainly not doing it with that foot. And so this push forward on the handlebars is what's causing his back wheel to come up, and the fact, look at his knees. He's straighter, he's starting to bend his knees and allowing the back wheel to come up, pushing forward with his hands. So he basically bunny hopped is what it comes down to, like early, boom. But his form is spot on. Like he did that perfectly. For trying to get height and distance, though, this isn't going to do it because he's executing everything way too early. One of the things that's a little scary, and I've actually seen this happen to people, is notice that his back wheel almost hits the ramp again. See how close it is? Now, if this was any bigger, and that's actually why I like this MTB Hopper coach setup, is I can set this in its absolute lowest setting, and you can make some pretty big mistakes on this thing, and it won't cause you to crash because it's so low to the ground, but it's got a nice transition. It's perfect for teaching. Um, he didn't hit his back wheel on here, but had this been any bigger, he would have tagged his back wheel on it. And once that happens, the front end's going to dive down. Back wheel took off right about here and did this kind of trajectory where it peaked out right around here, and then it started to level off, and then it went down right away. So if you find yourself like kind of nose diving, or you feel the back of your bike like kick up as you go off of jumps, this is why that's happening. You want to watch, get somebody, a buddy, to film you, or use a little tripod and your phone and film yourself in slow motion, and I can almost guarantee you that your back wheel is taking off too early. And the whole reason that's happening is because you're pushing your arms forward. You're looking for your landing and trying to land at the landing rather than trying to go up. And that's a thing that I commonly would do also, is I'd catch myself, aiming for the landing. I call it racer jumping. I'm actually trying not to let the ramp send me high in the air. I'm trying to absorb it and go more, straight to the ground or straight to the landing to maintain speed, or whatever reason I'd be doing it for. And getting myself out of that habit is this whole journey that I'm going through right now, of really trying to learn how to pop higher. So this is it. He pushes forward, comes through. He's already starting to push his legs down. This is excellent here. He's pushing his legs down just like I did. He's holding that front end up. So that's awesome. Holds the front end up, pushes the back end down, lands, rear wheel, comes down. I mean, all in all, for this being his first time jumping, that is really good form. Now it's just a matter of tweaking the timing and learning this part here of pulling and pushing with the legs a little longer to get more height off the ramp, right? So let's go back to mine and kind of recap real quick. Nice. So I'm going to back this up, and again, just because we watched that last video, we'll notice the difference. I'm compressed. Same thing right in here. I'm starting to spring up. So exactly like he did. Springing up, popping up, boom. So at this point in time, probably right here, maybe even here. Yeah, no, when he was here, his back wheel was already starting to come up. So this was probably where we both were equally matched. But it was from this point forward where things changed between his technique and my technique. Is here I'm still pulling and pushing with my legs, pulling with my arms. Boom. And so you see my body position here and the trajectory of my front wheel. I'm pulling, it's still going up at this point in the ramp, and my back wheel's riding out the ramp. And then I snap the arms forward. Again, he did this. He pushed forward with the arms, got the back wheel to come up. He just did it way earlier, so his back wheel was just barely above the lip of the jump. So I mean, huge difference here. Like, his back wheel left here, went like this, and just barely cleared the ramp, and then came down and landed here. And here I'm still going up with my back wheel, and my back wheel peaks out right there. So that's the peak of the height of my back wheel versus here. And so by doing that row technique all the way through the transition, I got the benefit of the ramp launching me in the air, plus the benefit of me pulling up with my arms, and then doing this, snap forward to level off the bike, then come down to land. Cool. I'm really excited about this progress that I've made, and I'm even more excited that I'm learning so much about all the little minute details of how this works. I've been jumping for years and I've never really taken this time to understand the mechanics of it. I've known the mechanics of it pretty good, but like now I'm getting into just like the nitty gritty of how do you pop? And so this is pretty cool. I really appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe.